Stand and say the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to declare an open meeting.
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Okay. There's a notification, the Open Meetings Act is supposed to be in the back of the room. I did want to say that since this is a emergency, or not an emergency, but a special meeting, public notice was made on the Plainview News website and the school's website, social media sites, as well as a hard copy down at Plainview News, the high school here, and out at Casey's. Roll call, Chance?
Yep.
Mike?
Yes.
Self here, Wyatt?
Yes.
Deb and is excused, and Melissa is running a little bit late, so she'll be here. All right, we'll just have a motion here to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
Wyatt, second. You keep the favor, sir.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we will move then on to public comment. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak this morning? Okay, seeing none, we will move to our discussion item, which is temporary on-site locations for kindergarten and third grade. I did want to say this is just, the reason for the meeting today is just because the board hasn't really, we've been given a plan, but we haven't had the opportunity to all talk about it. Also just wanted to point out that our administration team is gonna be gone the rest of the week. So, and plans need to start being made by the teachers, so thought we'd better get this done as soon as we could. But yeah, this is an informational meeting here, to put our support behind the plan the administration's come up with. So, at this point, I will turn over to Dr. Arlen if you want to say a few things about how we got.
Yeah, how we got to this point. So, and obviously this is about looking forward, but I think it's important maybe to bring us up to this point. And obviously with school just right around the corner, you know, and needing to move maybe just maybe a little quicker than maybe some folks are comfortable with. So, yeah, it was right at 5:30 and 50 seconds on the 10th. That the roof blew off. At 5:32, I notified Tim and Mike that we were having a pretty significant weather event in town, because we had a board meeting that night. So I said, hey, there's some pretty hectic stuff going on here in town, just let you know, your trees coming down, who knows. Tim texted me back just a couple minutes later and said that his daughter told him that the roof blew off the school. So that was how I first found out, is from Tim, whose daughter was at the pool. So lifeguards were at the pool. They were the first ones, I think, maybe to know. And then not just a couple minutes, so as soon as Tim told me, hey, I think my daughter told me the roof blew off the school. So I start to mobilize to go. It's still raining really hard. I get a phone call from Jimmy Johnson, who tells me the same thing. And I think his daughter was at the pool too. So that kind of corroborated, okay, we've got a somewhat potential catastrophic event. So I head to school. I arrive at 5:45. And I see this and don't immediately know what I'm looking at, thinking it's maybe the gym roof. I was confused because it didn't make sense. I would have expected to see two new big rooftop units. And then I realized, okay, this is the elementary roof. And so that was a little bit difficult to interpret immediately. So still raining pretty hard, and a few people were already on site. I parked by the principal door, checked under the roof. Saw cars under there. So looked, listened, paid attention, recognized who those cars belonged to. I knew they belonged to volleyball girls. I knew which volleyball girls, and I knew those girls were still in O'Neill. So I was able, I concluded reasonably that we don't have anybody in these vehicles. And at that time, I went into the gym to see what might be happening there. There were a couple of pretty good leaks happening. And then by the time I came out, a lot more people were starting to show up. Mr. Gill was there by that time. And we didn't recognize that there was any imminent danger, so, it didn't immediately occur to me to call 911, which I recognize is kind of been one of the biggest, concerns. Nor did anybody else that was there. Think it was necessary to call, 911 at that time. So after assessing the situation, Gail and I went to the elementary building, and water was coming in pretty hard. And most of it was coming in where a rooftop unit was dislodged from the curb on the roof. Water was funneling and coming in there and spreading throughout the building. But in the east wing, yeah, we had water leaking in pretty good in several classrooms. So Gail and I assessed that situation, and we went back outside, put the barricades up, and started to think, okay, what do we need to do immediately? What do we need to do right now? A lot of folks were there, just, and all of a sudden, in a small town, they're thinking, what do we need to do to help right now? Well, our immediate needs are X, Y, and Z. Who knows, who we might need to help with some of these things. I told Gail to call a roofing company. Knew we would need somebody ASAP. I decided to call a water mitigation company. So I called Floor Tech. It's coming up on 6 o'clock. I don't know if they're a 24-hour service, so I thought, shoot, if I don't call now, 6 o'clock, we don't get them here till morning. Because I know water indoors that saturates furniture, books, paper, and even cinder block, we know what that can lead to. And that's a much bigger issue if we've got mold. So I called water mitigation. Nice lady answers. I called Floor Tech, and nice lady answers and says, I'll have a crew there. And within an hour, we had a crew in the building, drying out the building. And our indoor quality inspector that came from Alliance Environmental Services that came from Des Moines said that was vital, that we dried out the building immediately. So that turns out to be, not an insane, stupid decision, as was mentioned at the city council meeting. It was a very smart decision. So Gail got a hold of the roofer. Next morning they were there. I called our insurance. Denny Johnson came down and assured us that we were gonna be covered, and to just move forward. And by that time, Mike and Tim and Melissa were here, and other well-intended, well-connected, community folks. We don't want this thing to be, stuck up alongside the building, all night. What do we need to do? At 6:11, the chief arrived and took control of the street. There were dozens of community members, in the street, across the street. No one appeared to think there was any imminent danger. No one, to my knowledge, thought it was necessary, even at that point, to call 911. Several people had kind of looked under the roof. Nobody was concerned. Nobody questioned, are there kids in the cars? I had made that determination within a minute after I had arrived. So there was not a hot sparking power cord on the street that kids were playing in. There was a cable that connected the light poles that was completely disconnected. I just took that and put it under the debris just to get it out of the street, because it didn't look good. It looked like power cord, but it was not hot. It was just a dead cable and cord. Fire chief approached me and I asked him if he'd check on the natural gas feed in the back of the elementary. He and Gail went and shut that off. By that time, I don't know who, somebody had contacted Hoffman Construction, knew that they had an excavator. Well, we want this thing on the ground. We don't want to leave it there all night. So we had a board meeting at 7. So we come into a board meeting during that time between 7 and 8:40. An excavator had arrived and they had, started in a matter of minutes, I think, they were able to pull that down. In the meantime, one of the cars was moved. Jim Kraus got permission from the owner of the car and he just backed it up. It was kind of adjacent to, just touching The piece of the roof, that car would have probably been completely destroyed had we left it there, but they made that decision to go ahead and do that. So at our board meeting, I think it was brought up by Melissa, hey, let's, rally the troops tomorrow, we got a big mess to clean up, primarily insulation, which just required a whole lot of hands, so. So we had dozens of people show up the next morning, 8 o'clock. Melissa brought donuts. We provided trash bags, and we just said, hey, just line up and just wander around and pick up insulation. And we sent a lot of adults to the roof. I didn't station anybody at the bottom of the ladder, because eventually a bunch of kids, curious kids, ended up on the roof. As soon as I saw them up on the roof, I went up there and told them to get down. Okay, so we did have that happen, but not a big deal by any means. By noon, the debris was completely gone. Insulation was almost 100% contained, even into the park. And that's a testament to, small town and people that just, want to take care of their school and want to get things done. So, we had a lot of folks that helped put us back together in a short amount of time, or clean up, I should say, in a short amount of time. The next several days, I worked with insurance, Radec, construction, guarantee roofing, floor tech, structural engineers, electricians trained, HVAC, fire suppression, a cabinet maker. By the end of the week, we got confirmation that insurance was gonna total out the entire roof, east to west, in a 2-phase project, because water had seeped all the way to the flagpole. So water had seeped under and saturated the original flat roof, all the way to the flagpole. But back to the evening before, I know that Jen and Tom Sauser went in to capture electronic devices, so we didn't want to have electronic devices that were potentially being saturated. Teachers obviously showed up and were concerned about their materials in their classrooms. Really hard to replace hundreds and hundreds of children's books. We were fortunate that we didn't lose hardly any. So we did have people in the elementary building, and a couple times we had to kind of say, hey, we need to get out. And I know the chief did as well. Hey, we probably should stay out of here. And I think people complied with that. So we got a 2-phase project to demo and replace the entire roof, minus the multipurpose room roof and the north addition. So just the east to west education classrooms. So in the next 2 months, we'll have cranes and demo equipment tearing off the roof from the flagpole all the way to the east. During this time, 5 classrooms are going to be inaccessible, 2 pre-K, 2K, and 1/3. Kyle, Jen, and I met with our roofer to discuss some options, or he confirmed what this first phase will be. So Kyle, Jen, and I met to discuss options, because not starting school on time is not an option. We're gonna have school. So what are our options if we can't use these classrooms? So we considered space in the high school, we considered portables, and we considered off-campus options. The high school would mean we displace the other classes down the west wing. So that means we're gonna displace everybody. So we didn't wanna do that. We could have displaced the older kids and moved the younger kids to the other end of the hallway. So then everybody's in a different classroom. Portables are long-term solutions, months or years solutions. This is gonna be weeks. So by the time we get bring portables in, get them powered up, potentially plumbed, so we quickly dismiss that as an option. We're not bringing in portables. Insurance would have paid for them. So what are our options off campus? So who's got space? So we brainstormed every church, social hall, city library. So Jen's like, I wanna keep us close to campus so we can use our playground, so we can use our lunchroom, so we don't have to provide transportation, so we can still provide specials, we can still provide music, art, guidance, we can still do those things. So it made sense that the Methodist Church and the city library would be our best options. And so I said, Jen, go for it. Talk to who you need to talk to and see what we need to do to make this happen. So I'll let Jen then talk about her conversations from that point.
So this all started about 2 weeks ago, and what I did was walk to the library, talked to Donna and Tammy, had conversations with both those ladies, and kind of mentioned what we were trying to do and using half of the conference room, like the west half is what I was inquiring about for 3rd grade. And they were both like, yes, yes, you let us know what you need, we are happy to help, we understand the situation. So from there, I actually saw Vicky Bartek's vehicle at the Methodist Library, so I went and talked to her. She kinda said the same thing, yep, let me bring it to my administrative council, and then they'll get back with me. So that was, I'm gonna say Wednesday, Thursday-ish. She got back to me and said that the administrative council is going to have a meeting this last week, Monday night. I said, okay, great, let me know what they say. And in the meantime, between that conversation and the administrative meeting, Gail Retzloff calls me and asks me to attend that meeting. So I did. The administrative council kind of addressed some of their concerns. The main one was liability. They wanted to make sure that if anything happened, that the school's insurance covered liability claims. And I said I would seek that information out. And then they asked me to kind of draft a plan, our expectations, the Methodist Church expectations, said sure, happy to do that. So then after that meeting Monday, Wednesday night, I took Sage and Rhonda down there because I wanted kindergarten to be in the same space. That was one of the hiccups why we didn't feel like we could put kindergarten in the elementary or we could put kindergarten over here, was because they wouldn't be in the same space essentially. And so I took those two teachers down there, we kind of toured it, we talked through some of the concerns that they had. Again, went back to Vicki and said, you know, these are some things, can we make this happen? And she's like, sure. And then they wanted some things for us to do, and we said, sure. And so everybody was comfortable with using the Methodist space. They did mention to us that if a funeral happened, what would you do? And I said, the east part of the conference room in the library is not going to be used. If we had to relocate for half a day, or even if it's one day, we would make that work. I said, so that could be our plan B if that happens. And so then we presented, Dr. Out and I kind of worked on a list of expectations, Friday, Saturday, this weekend, and I sent those to Gail. And I kind of told Gail, I said, we're crunched for time, I was really hopeful that we could move stuff ASAP. Let me know what you think about these things, and we'll kind of adjust as needed. So he was very good about communicating to me the things that they would like adjusted on our agreement. And then, in the meantime, Dr. Arlt wanted me to make sure that everything was okay at the library. So Donna had sent me an email, I want to say Thursday of last week, and said, hey, because I reached out to them again on Thursday, just double checking to make sure everything was okay. And she's like, yep, you just let us know. And then she had sent me an email saying, but you better double check with Mr. Tarr, Jeremy Tarr at the city. So I said, okay. I called him on Friday, we talked a little bit, and he gave me the go-ahead on Friday to use the library space. So then on Saturday, I sent him a text message of the same thoughts that we had for the agreement that I gave the Methodist Church. I have not heard anything back from him yet. So I don't know why, but I have not heard anything back from him yet. So at that point, then Dr. Arlt reached out to me and said, okay, the school board wants to kind of discuss this a little bit. So I was like, all right, and here we are. So that's kind of where we're at with the communication that I've done the last 2 weeks with this reorganizing. And I guess one of my questions to you guys would be, what concerns were brought to you about using these two locations?
So the library is a city-owned building, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't that have to go through the city council before anything is decided? Is that Donna's responsibility to lease that building out?
I've done everything she's asked me to do, so.
I don't know if they have a facility use agreement like we do. We have that in policy, and so, I don't know if apparently maybe there isn't one, but that would have liked with them, maybe provided to Jim, but maybe there is.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Tarr would obviously know if, well, okay, we have to have a special city council meeting maybe to agree to allow the school to use this space, temporarily. We don't know precisely how long, but potentially as little as a month, which I would consider to be short term, because I think that at one point we may have thought, okay, we're gonna demo and, a whole roof, cause they have to demo the original flat roof, cause it's saturated. So that has to go, so we will have so that will, in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is pretty significant, this could be months, it will be weeks, so. So I don't know that on their end, whether that has to be city council approved. But if Jeremy appeared to give Jen, yeah, you can do it, I would think maybe not, but he may be directed otherwise, I guess. You know.
Everything would have to be in writing, correct?
Well, so, you know, there was talk of a contract. What I initially came up that Jen and I worked on was a simple bullet list, you know, city, library, and Methodist Church will provide these things, the school district will provide these things. So, you know, quite simply, I think they're gonna provide space and access to utilities. We're gonna provide, and access, they'll give it, we'll need access. So, what we're gonna provide is supervision, we're gonna provide liability, we're gonna provide, resources that we would use, in the facilities, paper products, soap products and such. We're gonna provide daily or routine cleaning of that space. We're gonna provide a thorough cleaning, at the end of that, and I was gonna work with Floor Tech on that. So, I mean, somebody, you know, a restoration company, whether that's necessary, I mean, I think we basically will need, vacuuming and sanitizing and clean the bathrooms, but, we'll wanna leave the space better than we found it. So, I was hoping to avoid having to pay a lawyer, to draw up a contract, a legal document. We can do that if we feel it's necessary. I did get confirmation from our insurance carrier that our liability covers our teachers and kids when off campus, just like when we go on a field trip. Unless there's negligence on the part of somebody else, you know, they have an unsafe environment and it does lead to, you know, potential injury, then that could, you know, be, you know, the site's liability. We don't anticipate that at all, that would be an issue. So again, a little bit thinking, well, just I think a handshake in a small town, and, you know, an agreement. But if we have to have, legal protections, we'll do that. It'll just take time and money. In the interim, they probably could start to prepare. We have to create classrooms in these spaces for kindergarten teachers and for a third grade teacher. So it'll take a little bit of work, you know, on their part to do that. And of course, elementary teachers, once July 4th is done, they're chomping at the bit to put classrooms together. Well, we're looking at August next week. And so, you know, to have to create a whole new, you know, welcoming learning space for 6-year-olds, for example. So, yeah, time is of the essence.
So the email that I read, maybe I read it wrong, said something about we had like a $2 million discretionary spending rider. Is that true?
That's what I was told by the church.
So I guess I'm thinking that we, if instead of, I mean, if it's okay to pay you guys that are going above and beyond, why aren't we writing a donation to the Methodist Church?
We absolutely will. Yep, at the end, we'll try to make as accurate assessment of, for example, what were their real expenses? So the use of utilities, you know, and we try to do our best to determine, what was the expense to the city, what was the expense to the church for use of utilities, and anything else that we maybe didn't anticipate, which I don't know for sure what that would be. But then we absolutely can make a reasonable donation of that amount and beyond, you know, to be determined, you know, by myself and the board on what is reasonable. So yes, Chance.
And that extends to the library and
that would
to the
extend to the
janitorial
city.
staff
Yes.
also?
Yep. So our time working on this is also part of the claim. So our insurance company is going to reimburse the school district for our salaries that we have had to spend working on this claim. So we're covered very, very well by EMC. You don't know how well you are or how well you aren't until you have a circumstance such as this. But I'm finding out that service and our coverage from EMC is exceptional, so far.
with a couple things. First of all, we don't expect our janitors to do this extra work. We're gonna try to pick up somebody else maybe from those facilities or whatever, if they never do it.
Well, right now, Kelly is not full-time, I plan to move him to full-time. When we lost Jolene, we brought on Kelly Eichler, not full-time, we're gonna move him to full-time. I haven't spoken with Gail, Gail's on vacation, I haven't spoken with him specifically about how this might look. And I'm not sure if Jen has with Bill. But we'll make it work. Our teachers, so our classrooms every day, for example, an elementary classroom, unless kid throws up, which is rare, but I mean, they're not soiled, every day. And kids often help with disinfecting and cleaning, so this isn't gonna be a significant increase in custodial needs.
You're gonna take desks down there, or they're gonna sit around the tables?
We're gonna kind of use the tables that they have. The Methodist Church will need a couple tables from each of the kindergarten classrooms, but for the most part, we're using their furniture.
So my question, outside looking in, I have no idea how stuff's run over in that building, and I don't care how it's run, I guess, but just outside looking in, to me, it makes like we don't wanna move the preschool, cause it's hard to herd little kids to where they wanna go, but we're gonna move the kindergarten. I'm asking like, why aren't we putting kindergarten in a couple other rooms in the elementary building and moving like second grade down?
Yeah, so we thought about that.
Yep, we did. The music room was the first room that we were able to switch classes around and make work, so that was an open space right away. The computer lab is right across. Computer lab will be home to 6th grade math, because we are splitting math in the 6th grade this year. It is also home to some of our guidance classes, and then it is also home to Mrs. Yolk's lower elementary classes. She uses the computers in there. And then we moved our workroom, copier, and things like that teachers need access to all the time in the computer lab as well. So all 4 of those things were happening in the computer lab. And I felt like it was extremely challenging to try and relocate those classes versus just putting kindergarten in the Methodist space where they can both be together.
So how many times will they be moving back and forth during the day? So they'll come over for lunch?
Yep, and then they'll have, their specials right now are set up for the most part where either they start the day with a special or they end the day with a special, because we did look at that as well when we were over there, twice.
So will there be just the 2 teachers, will there be 2 paras?
We, kindergarten starts their day with reading, and there are paras that will go over there with them, so those paras will escort the kindergarten in the mornings. And then the teachers will come over with them for lunch and recess, and then we'll have paras, between paras and teachers, we'll have them escorting.
One of my other biggest concerns is for the library, because I have a student that'll be in 3rd grade. And how are we gonna make sure that some of our local sex offenders aren't in that building when our kids are in that building?
So my initial thought about that, because I have had a concern about that, but our library provides programs for our kids all year long. Like during the day for younger kids, after school for our school-aged kids, and they take security measures to make sure that those sex offenders are not around during those activities. So I guess my question back to you, Chance, would be, how is this any different, or why do we have a concern now?
Well, cause my kid isn't in all the other stuff, and he's gonna be in like.
I know, but your kid is just as important in every other kid.
Exactly, but that's what, like right now, it's a school thing, before it was like a public library thing, it's a whole different can of worms in my book, I guess.
But we'll take the same measures, safety-wise, that we would if it was in our building. The doors will be locked, we have teachers that are there, if the bathroom becomes an issue, we'll have teachers there to help with the bathroom thing. But I've also told all of these teachers that when you're in our building, you take that as an opportunity to use bathroom breaks. Use these off-site facilities for classroom learning purposes only, and then everything else that needs to happen can happen in our building.
So the doors are gonna be locked at the library
Mhm.
that west conference.
Yeah, every door that has
And
access
same
to the
with the church.
space that will be part of the classroom can be locked
The same-
and will be locked.
And we can legally do that with it being a public library.
Yes, because it's not the main
Not part of
entrance.
the library. It's
Yeah.
just a
That's
meeting
fine, I
room.
just wanna make sure.
Yeah,
And then the same at the church as well, that
Uh-huh.
will be locked. so-
Yep.
And then if you needed to move kids, the kids need to be picked up, I think the letter said you're gonna do that back
Yep,
at school.
correct.
Is that right?
Yes, and I have generated a letter for our kindergarten and third grade families explaining all the expectations with this off-site location. But we would treat it just as if those kids were when it comes to early pickups.
If you had a downpour day where you just, kids, you don't want them out walking that.
We'd reach out to Bob.
if necessary, yeah, we can provide transportation, or teachers are always flexible. I mean, their plans, practically every day, they make adjustments, and they make do, so, they're reasonable, prudent people who, yeah, will adjust, as necessary.
So those facilities have a tornado plan, fire plan, all that, and that's something the teachers should probably be aware of when they're over there, just where to go in what situation.
They are evacuation sites for us essentially, so those are things
That's where
that,
you go anyway.
Yeah.
Transfer, or, dismissal end of the day, that won't change, and when I pick kids up there, we'll bring them obviously back to campus. Again, that was the reason that, it seemed clear to us that
So
these
you're
were
actually
our
gonna
best
be moving
two
them back
options.
and forth like 3 times a day, right? You're gonna go
Well,
over there
potentially,
once,
yeah.
back for lunch, back over there, back for out of school.
yes.
Yeah.
But the last trip that several of these classes make over for a special, they're just gonna stay in our building. and
Yeah, I
be
get
dismissed.
that, I'm just talking total for the day on average, maybe 3 times.
And there's, throughout the year, there's several times, I think, that our kids, visit and access the library during the school day. So, I mean, they're familiar with that, and obviously, teachers will work on, they'll practice that walk. The city has a walk space that, okay, not everybody's 100% comfortable with that walk space, but we've been doing it safely for years. And
I don't have a problem with the walking, the only thing I'm a little concerned about is, the kindergarten class, I guess, like, if I have 2 pins of cattle and 1 pin is 200 pounders, like like baby calves, and I have a pin of wean calves, I'm gonna move the wean calves and get them out of my way instead of moving the little ones, because it's harder to move the little ones. That's the only thing I'm just.
Well, and the first month of school is so exhausting for kindergartners anyway. This is gonna be a lot.
Like, I get it, it's the easiest way, but sometimes the easiest way maybe isn't the best way, that's the only thing I was trying to say.
Yeah, we determined that it was both.
Mrs. Hassan works with all the teachers over there, that she knows the students, better than what we do. And they've taken the time to figure out that this is the one that works best. I just like being out and walking, recess for them. Mind the walk unless the weather.
No, I don't think they're gonna mind the walk either, I just,
They'll like to do that.
it's a lot to watch. What, you got 13, 14 kids in each class, you gotta pay attention.
Our kindergarten teachers are experts, that's what they do.
And they're used to traveling back and forth to get to specials, we're just adding a little bit more distance to this.
We're very fortunate to have those two places offer their space up, being that close. Rather than going something like the upstairs of the junior high building, which is about the same distance, probably even more.
Yeah.
Just very thankful to have them willing to help us out.
I know Zion's been moving their kids over here for dinner, preschool and all that for years and years and years, they must have over here.
We haven't since COVID, but yes,
Oh, you
for
haven't
all
since
those years up to that time. We take lunch to them now, but for years, yes, we were exactly right.
Get most of the other concerns or questions you guys have, did we get everything answered?
Well, there'll be adjustments to make along the way, there always is, but they'll be big.
And parents with any concerns, are they to talk to us, or can they directly reach you?
They can.
You
And
should talk to Jim.
I would just assume that you send them my way, so I know what their concerns are. I have not heard anything from anybody besides the Methodist group that I met with, and then when I had conversation with Jeremy Carr. Otherwise, I have not heard anything. Nobody has had any conversations with me.
I guess I
a
would
lot of
like
people
to,
didn't know it was coming.
Well, I think it's leaked out, and we knew that as soon as, you know, Jen started to have conversations with both sides, and obviously at the Methodist Church as a council meeting, I mean, that's public information, and that's fine, so I mean, I think we knew that folks would, hear that we're considering these spaces. We don't have a problem with that, but certainly, we wouldn't want anybody to think that, oh my gosh, what are they, you know, trying to do something without, well, no, but we have to have those initial conversations, and we're not gonna do them under some, you know, cloak and, you know, try to hide anything. So we knew that, you know, folks, I think for the most part, know that this is our first plan. So if folks knowing that would let you know if they have concerns, or would let Jay know. So, I mean, I think that's, I guess primarily why we're here, is to make sure we're specific about that.
The other thing is, they're gonna make detailed changes day to day that we're not gonna know about. Where a parent might have information their kid brought home that we don't know about. So us trying to answer the questions is, you know, fruitless, because we don't know everything that goes on day to day either. So to direct it to Jen.
Yeah. I get it, we might not have 100% of parents that like it, you know, they might think we should've did Y or Z instead of X, and that's fine, we respect that, but we have to do what is best and prudent for, you know, for the school and for that entire classroom. We're in a situation where we could just wait until the roof is done. I don't think anybody wants that. I don't think anybody wants to push off start of school for a month or more. So we have to do something. Folks might prefer that we be on campus. We've determined that we can do better on these two sites than to try to shift all kinds of other classrooms so that we can keep everybody on campus.
So you'd be looking at shifting 5 classrooms, is that right?
Well, and when I messaged you and said 5, I didn't even account for library, guidance, and those math classes. When we were talking about relocating the upper elementary, I was saying if we relocate the 5th and 6th grade classrooms, so kindergarten can use that space, then I just wasn't even accounting for the computer lab space. I was just talking about relocating different classrooms.
Yeah, your plan is to move as less or as few as you can, or
Correct.
as little disruption.
Correct.
While continuing on. And yeah, there might be some, you notice the language there, or action item, you know, there might be some, give the administration the authority to make reasonable decisions or adjustments, because those are obviously going to have to happen. It's not gonna go exactly as you planned, you hope it would, but there's gonna be things that come up that this might work better, this might work better. And, you know, rather than the board get together every time, we need to trust it, and they're making the best decisions in the kids' best interest, and they are.
and I hear that with the admin team, paired with the board, paired with the city in this case. This is very important that all of these people come together and work together, and I think that will minimize a lot of question. So I don't know if you need to meet with the city council, or if you need to get it in writing from Jeremy. However, I just think it'll mitigate a lot of the questions if we can all work together as a team and support this and make this go.
And I've done those things that they've asked of me when I've reached out to the ladies at the library and when I've talked to Jeremy. So nothing's been told to me that a city council meeting needs to happen before we can move forward.
Well, however it needs to happen, there just needs to be more communication.
And I talked to, Gail Resloff as well, and, you know, after it shared with Jen and shared with city and the Methodist, you know, so Gail brought up some liability concerns. I assured him that our insurance carrier says we're covered. He mentioned something about, well, if, you know, snow or whatever, and I'm like, well, okay, this isn't, it's not gonna be snowing by the time we, you know, are done here, but, So circumstance would be such that if part of the agreement was the Methodist Church was gonna clear ice and snow, you know, and they didn't do it, and then, you know, one of our students was injured on it, you know. But that's not gonna happen. So what I did want to do is just, I mean, we can overthink this a little too much, and it's gonna, and we can what if, and it can really slow us down. Or we can say, what would reasonable, prudent people do in a small town? Can we just agree to support and help our families, help our kids, help our school? You know, I think we can do that. He asked for, you know, he says, like, maybe some more details, because it was a simple little bullet list. School will provide this, they'll provide. He asked for more details. I said, well, let me know what other details you feel are necessary. And I haven't heard back from him on that, so maybe there's a, you know, they'll, you know, they're talking on their end, well, we want some assurance of, more assurance on certain things. And we'll provide those, as soon as, you know, I know what that needs to look like. And again, if we need to produce a legal document, I need to know, because I need to get on that. Because, lawyers don't work fast and they don't work cheap.
I'm surprised the insurance company doesn't wanna know some details to put in the policy, you know, locations, addresses, and those types of things. And then
Well,
come up with a
yeah,
policy,
yeah.
you know,
Our-
they just want everything in writing.
Yeah, our binder though has that in writing from EMC, our coverage does have it in writing that, our kids are covered off campus, they know that schools take their kids off campus all the time. And on our transportation and offsite, you know, our liability coverage protects from injury.
I know that they're saying this project's gonna be done in weeks, but so was this one. It was supposed to be done, what, a year ahead of time before, I mean, it took them a year longer than we thought. That's the one thing.
Yep, you're right, Chance, so I do have a.
And I had the same thing happen to me too,
Yeah, I've got a temporary timeline, from Radak, who's the primary contractor. So several subcontractors underneath them, from guarantee roofing to internal controls, everything with HVAC, electrical, gas, you know, put everything back together. So, Radak is coordinating, yes, that all the subs take care of this, we can take care of this, take care of this, take care of this. I know that it probably won't go perfectly to plan. So if we're in within a month, that means it did. I think that's but I don't think we're looking at months, at all, because I asked them that same thing, Chance, you know, I said, this timeline, seems unreasonable to me, a layperson, to think that you're gonna come in here and demo a roof and put a new roof on. And that's what we do. That's what we do. Watch us. And so
Roofers
far,
have to be done before the snow flies, they're used to those timelines.
yeah, if they coordinate all the parts correctly, but I've sure been impressed. I mean, a lot of companies a lot of businesses and companies in 24 hours, came to begin to take care of us. From getting water out of the building and dehumidifying that building and getting that temp roof on. Sure, I wish they could have done it in 12 hours, so that next 60 hundredths we got the next day, it wouldn't have made us wet inside again. But Floor Tech was here, you know, again, cleaned us up. Hopping construction. By noon, the street was clean. And the city provided a depository for it. So people came and worked together. So far, it's been somewhat remarkable. And I know there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to continue to happen to get us back in that building in a month, by mid-September. But they're saying that's our plan.
It was impressive to see that. They dropped, you know, all their other jobs, what they
Yeah.
were doing, and everybody came and was there. They make a little more money on these jobs from the insurance company than they do from the company that.
So our insurance is gonna cover those iPads that got stolen?
Yes.
How is that not negligence on our part for not leaving the building unlocked?
Okay, well, maybe it is. They don't care.
That doesn't matter?
Yes, doesn't matter. So we left the building unsecured for Floor Tech to work throughout the night. My bad, I didn't confirm how late are you gonna be here. Gail, give him a key fob, whatever. So, yeah, obviously, we had a looter. I turned that over to the chief. Chief, I think, has turned it over to her deputy, from what I understand. Obviously, turned over pictures to the newspaper to try to, you know, okay, who can identify? We know who it is, we're reasonably, the chief and I both said, we know who it is. I don't know where they are with that, they haven't asked us for further information, provide us with any details, and they don't have to, it's their business, their jurisdiction. But the 6 iPads, I think 5 or 6. 6 iPads, have already been reordered and will be turned over to Plains.
Outside the scope of the roof, what else needs to be replaced, remodeled? What sort of-
Cabinetry.
Cabinetry.
Cabinetry in the preschool room was saturated pretty bad, and determined to be, so that was demoed. So we've already talked with Anthony Hardesty, who originally built those, custom built those to go in there. He's simply gonna replicate them. And install them. We're gonna get new rugs, new rug in the, new carpet in the kindergarten room, maybe, new rugs as well. Some of that is still being determined. But we didn't lose electronics, we didn't lose, desks, equipment. So we're gonna turn in, for some paper, we had some paper that got saturated, but, you know, we had a big pile of paper in there, but it sits up off the ground. So we're not gonna have a tremendous amount of property, that's gonna need to be, personal items and school items, and supplies, resources, that needs to be turned in. So it's a little tough kind of inventory every little thing, but we came out, really better than folks might anticipate with regard to damage to school property and school resources within the building. Because it mostly just came in one spot and then just ran, throughout the building, almost all the way, halfway down the west wing. But most of it, as you might expect, is in the east hallway, and those classrooms.
You had mentioned replacing tile floor at one time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not 100% sure, but we may have original tile floor, that will be replaced. There's an asbestos concern for that, but our internal environmental, consultant is all over it.
We probably want to get that done before school starts, and then tear that asbestos out.
Yeah.
Probably what it is.
So phase 2 would be next summer. So next summer, they will demo from the flagpole to the west. I did ask, of course, that, because the temporary roof that's on there is good for several years. Kind of sad that they put that temporary roof on, and it's gonna be demoed here pretty quick, but that's the way it is. I'm not gonna tell them how to do their business, doesn't make sense to me, but I said, hey, can't we just wait to do this whole thing next summer? That temporary roof has got as dry as can be. Can't we wait till next summer? We can't, Darren, your flat roof is saturated. And, it's got hundreds of holes in it from the roof that blew off that was lag screwed 4 inches in. That's all saturated. And for obvious reasons, we can't have that saturated original flat roof above our kids' heads, trapped by that temporary roof where it can't breathe, for 9 months. So, okay, now that makes sense to me, so. Phase 2 will be flagpole all the way to.
They had mentioned maybe starting at the east end, I don't know if it'd be possible to get the kindergarten.
Yeah.
Done early, and then
Yeah.
we could move the kids back.
Probably can't get all the internal controls done until the whole roof is done. So yeah, I thought of that too, Tim, and I think they are gonna start on the east, and so the kindergarten classroom, the preschool classroom that are the easternmost classroom will be the first ones to be covered. But until the whole roof is done, we can't get all the internal controls done, the fire suppression, fire alarm, HVAC and all that, until the whole thing is done. So we're probably all coming back together.
We hope for the best.
Mhm.
Moves along as quickly as it
Yeah.
can.
We'll just trust the pros.
Are there any other questions on our discussion? Not to stray too far. If not, I would approve, make a motion to approve the administrative plan to temporarily relocate the kindergarten, 3rd grade, and to authorize the board or the administrative team to make reasonable decisions and adjustments during the transition to return to elementary building. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the plan, making reasonable adjustments during the transition time. Myself, yes.
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Chance?
No.
Mike? Yes. Okay, motion carried.
Well, what's reasonable?
Well, we can't have work.
Well,
We can't trust.
I can vote no and still pass, guys, so who cares?
That's fine.
No.
So we're just gonna wanna know what your concerns
Your
are.
opinion matters.
Not really, I get outvoted every time.
Well, I wanted to say, again, thank you to the administration, staff, the teachers, the contractors, and especially then to the city. And